First came fire, just as it had to, because it's the first tool your mind's created, and so the first thing that turned to destroy your minds. Years of your hatred, your anger, wrung from the mill of servitude, manifested once beyond the tipping point in moments. Volcanoes literally everywhere. Across the globe, from the seas they rose and spewed their bright gel down their sides. In days, the world had become a charnel pit, blackened cities and forests and roads and beaches, smoke filled the skies, ash drifted down like tiny leaves and stuck to eyelashes. Cracks were riven, the world was torn, and into the pits you people fell. It was too quick for anything. Everything burned, everything was cut off. 75% of life was incinerated in 2 days and nights of fire. The whole earth burned. You fought anything that came along, and you, of course, fought each other. 75% became 80, became 90. Breathing meant you had to climb to higher ground, but it got colder and colder there and less resources. Of the 10% that survived, the 5 most were across the tundra lines and were spread far and few. They made homes in the frigid mountain footholds and fought for their lives, and they dwindled, for the fires had left a terrible toll upon humanity that was left. For the fires had left a terrible toll on humanity as was left. They left you sterile. At least, you blamed the fires. You thought you were cursed by God or the universe, and you prayed for an end, yet you didn't end. You continued. Why, oh why did you do that? And so I had to return. And I was glorious, for I am the truth, and the time of truth was at hand. My reins were gone. I flexed my fingers and I tasted the breeze, and it was good. I didn't know why it was good, I just knew that I knew it. The void was gone. That was it. I was free to complete my purpose, to set mankind free. The mountains boomed my message, the skies danced in rippling chaos, and the seas writhed in ecstasy. I breathed in the last of my corporal energies, and my feet led me to a faint glimmer on the horizon. I think that's pretty much where I've got to. Well, oh no, here we go. Deep in the lushly forested hills of Central Europe you had ran and you had survived. They were lushly forested. They were. Before the fires, anyway. Now they were lushly covered with smoking stalactites and gently puffing husks of those mighty giants of yesterday, with grey as the new green. Naturally, food was very scarce, and necessity forced you to adapt your tastes to all manner of hitherto unthinkable sources of sustenance. A twig tremors on the ashen ground. It tremors once more, and we see a black carapace, encapsulated set of 6 legs, frantically find purchase around the top right-hand edge. Once purchase is gained, a shiny beetle pulls itself upon the twig from out of sight behind it, and then proceeds to rush quickly down the twig's length. It looks to be headed for the mushy grey-brown earth at that end, and extends a twitching leg off the final edge of the twig, ready to complete its journey, when all of a sudden comes a swishing sound from above. A blur of brown fur and a pale hand has the beetle upside down, legs akimbo and pumping frantically. The beetle fusses to be free of the digits, but to no avail, and it is raised up into the light of the rising sun and brought level with a large brown eye. Not that kind. Once appraised, the beetle is dropped into a warm and fetid-smelling mouth, wet and filled with many flattened teeth. Before it has a chance to make itself comfortable, a broad tongue forces it to one side, laying it across the bottom row of teeth, whilst the upper row quickly rises and then plummets back down in place, sandwiching the beetle's crunchy body between them. Viscous spurts out in creamy yellow ooze, pooling around the teeth. The tongue, its work not yet done, pulses left and right, delivering only scraps of the beetle's eviscerated little body back between the stumps of enamel for further crunching. Once the beetle's broken body and internal fluids resemble more of a puddle than a life form, the tongue makes one final concerted lunge, and the throat opens, and the whole tangy yet crunchy mess disappears into the human's gullet to power yet more of its functions for living, and the cycle so continues. Here in these hills there are several thus living, close in fact to 50 in the nearby village from whence they range. Most spend their days thus, scavenging amongst the dirt and the twigs for anything that moves, and often anything that doesn't. Despite it all, they smile and they laugh. They play games, and they make music. They sing and they talk. "Ah, that was a sour one," a brown-eyed male exclaims. Not far to his left, an older female looks up from her survey of the floor, a face full of ants scurrying all over her as she tries to shove them in from her fingers, licking and sucking. "Rush, still into my ants, me!" She coughs, and an ant careens into a 4 foot high blackened stump, which she leans on as she coughs again. "God damn, but them tickly!" She laughs and wipes the back of her hand across her face and returns to her survey of the ground, legs wide apart, bent front ways, head and arms hanging over, casting about them left and right, searching like a giant tentacled leviathan. No wonder the ants try not to build nests too near the remaining human colonies, but needs must. The colony itself is not far off from the hungry pair. A short walk of around 10 minutes sees us arrive at a wicker-like fence, lots of young green wood branches cleverly threaded between stouter posts for a waist-high perimeter. You humans have been busy since the apocalypse and have been quick to relearn lost skills. It's been just over 5 years now, and the climate has calmed a lot. Temperatures stabilized after the eruption slowed down in the 3rd week and then stopped after 5. Caves had provided initial shelter, but now small villagers like this were using some of the newly grown wood to make more comfortable homes. Of course, only fast growers like hazel and pine had enough to warrant harvesting, but it's a material that seems to remind humans most of all about home, security and shelter. So we see beyond the modest fence a handful of grass-thatched round houses, all made using mixtures of the ash and rich soil and the dry grasses found all about us now. Together it makes for quite a strong and durable material, and a nice trick, well made of such stuff, grants good insulation and fireproofing. And all the huts have low, stooped entry openings, and facing the central point in the village, the fire pit. Around here we should expect to see children at play, mothers talking amongst one another and stealing protective glances or flirtatious exchanges with a nearby male, but here there is no such interplay, for there is but one child in this village, a short and fat boy. He is the hope and prayers of the village. He is the future, for since the fires and the smoke not a single woman has fallen pregnant, and the only things to be issued from the loins of such women are as left upon the earth, bloody, tumour-like tissues, piles, no matter how hard they would try. A blight has cursed humanity with the inability to procreate, and thus you are doomed. Which I suppose makes me a little redundant, and so I've been much slower in pursuing to harvest of late. I suppose one could say I feel sorry for you, though the truth is closer to I feel sorry for me. Of the tiny percentage of humans left upon this earth, my final harvest, you are almost all out of fight. Out of that spark which made my job interesting. Feels lackluster to free a soul now. You want it too much. Doe-eyed and slack-jawed, you gaze limpidly at me as I approach, as if you reckon yourselves to be asleep and must soon wake. You no longer run, you no longer cry out, you no longer ask questions of me with your eyes. I feel no longer the conductor of a beautiful symphony, but the servant to an insipid brood of tired, malnourished sheep. But things have definitely perked up here and there, and I live now for these perkings.